And now I am in the GLAS Community Garden in Ballymun. I am talking to Hans Zomer, the CEO of Global Action Plan, or GAP. Hans, welcome to the Global Solidarity Programme on the RFM.
Hi, Darren. Thank you so much for having me on the programme.
Okay, Hans, can you tell me who Global Action Plan are, and then tell me more about this GLAS Community Garden, please?
Yeah, so Global Action Plan is an environmental NGO based in Ballymun in Dublin, and we've been around for 21 years. We work with community groups and with schools and businesses on how we can, live more sustainably. We do workshops on how you can grow your own food, how you can compost, but also how you can reduce your environmental footprint and your carbon footprint. So we're a small NGO, but we have a national remit, and we have great ambitions. And we're talking today in the GLAS Garden in Ballymun, which is one of the cores of our work. It's a small organic garden in the heart of Ballymun, where we bring people together for those workshops that I mentioned, but also just for them to enjoy being out in the greenery, enjoy planting trees or planting vegetables, growing food, and learning how to work with nature, and just enjoy the discovery of biodiversity that is possible even in a small place like a inner city garden like the GLAS Garden.
Yeah, I was looking at your website yesterday, and you were set up, as you said, about 21 years ago, and there were two people that set it up. One, I know you're Dutch. One of the people that set it up was Dutch, weren't they?
Yes, the whole idea behind Global Action Plan was actually initially by an American couple, and they had this idea that to live more sustainably, to build more sustainable societies, we need to just advance the knowledge and the understanding of how humans impact on our planet, and so they had this model that we still follow, really, and it's about green living. So how you can grow your own food, how you can reduce the waste you produce, how you don't need to buy as much stuff, and how you can reduce your energy use and your water use, etc.
One of your international founders actually died recently, didn't they?
Yeah, so she was one of the Dutch leaders from the early days. Yeah.
Okay, I know you have, as you said, you're in Ireland and you're in the UK. What other countries, if any, are you in?
Well, the Global Action Plan International family has 14 members in 13 countries. So they range from Norway to Spain and Italy to Vietnam even, and Belarus as well. So it's a lovely international family, and we all try to work towards the same thing, which is really to rebuild our links as people with our planets that we live on.
Yeah, I got in touch with you today mainly because National Biodiversity Week is starting this Saturday, and we're going to talk particularly about that. But just one question about global warming. For a long time I thought that the talk about global warming was a bit overemphasized, because even if the countries of the world do not meet our targets, the temperature will only rise by something like 1.5%, I think. But am I right in saying that figure is only an average figure? So it's not as simple as it looks. Is that the way it is?
Yeah, exactly. To you and me here in Ireland, 1.5 degrees warmer sounds really nice, because people have this idea that it will give us lovely warm summers. But what will happen is that a whole series of processes in the atmosphere will change. So, when you go back to school, we learned about the water cycle, about water evaporating in the sea, and then falling as rain or snow back on the land, etc. What is happening when the atmosphere heats up and the seas heats up, those processes are changed, and they're magnified in many ways, but also distributed unevenly. So one of the things that we weren't told in schools, that the biggest rivers are not the Amazon and the Nile, and so they are rivers in the sky. There's basically all that water vapor that travels around the planet. It's massive amounts of water, and what you see now when the atmosphere is heating up, the atmosphere is able to absorb even more water than it was before, and these rivers in the sky get enormous, and then when they empty themselves, you get these floods that we've been seeing in places like Germany and Belgium last year, and all over the planet. So global warming, 1.5 degrees more warmth in the atmosphere overall, basically means way more extreme weather, bigger storms, bigger floods, bigger droughts, all at the same time in different places.
And it's like 1.5% overall, so in some places it could be 5% or more, is that right? I was talking to the CEO of Aidlink a few weeks ago on Near FM, she was telling me that even in the countries they work, Uganda, I think, she can already see the effects of it, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And myself, in the 1990s, I was working in countries like Pakistan and Chad, and I remember farmers telling me then that the weather was changing, and I thought, well, you're just not really remembering it right. But actually, they were absolutely spot on. In a country like Chad, where you would normally have 2 rainy seasons, a small one in the beginning of, in sort of May time, and then another one in the August period, and the small one would soften up the ground so that farmers could sow their vegetables and whatever, and then the plants would really grow in the August period. Now, what they were telling us then, back in the 1990s, is that the small rainy season in May just didn't happen. And so, can you imagine what happens if to the whole agricultural model that is based on the fact that you have a little bit of water in a particular month, so that you can sow your plants for the year, that doesn't happen. So you can't sow, you can't harvest, and that's why you also see so many more food shortages all around the world. The weather patterns, and I think this is a really important point to emphasize to your listeners, that yes, global warming, we're talking about averages, but really the people who are affected are the poorest and the most vulnerable, and they are the people who in fact contributed least to the whole problem of climate change. Because let's face it, the greenhouse gas emissions have happened predominantly in rich countries like Ireland, Europe and the United States.
Okay, Hans, what does biodiversity mean to you and your organisation?
Well, very simply, biodiversity to us just means the wealth of differences of all living things, the plants, the animals, the insects. There is an enormous, anybody who's ever watched the David Attenborough documentary knows about the huge diversity of living things on this planet, and we're, I suppose, dependent on that diversity. The plants we eat and the animals that we eat, they depend on plants, and those plants depend on natural cycles of carbon and nitrates, etc., being recycled. So there are all these natural processes that have existed for millennia, and that we have disrupted with the way we've organized our agriculture and our society. So for us, I suppose Biodiversity Week is a great opportunity to remind people that there is a beauty in the diversity of the natural world, which is a value in itself, but that actually that beauty is also important because we fundamentally depend on the natural world for our own survival.
Bees and wasps, they're having a very tough time, aren't they?
Yes, exactly. I mean, we've created a world where those bees and the pollinators, so the animals that help plants reproduce, are dying out. And you can say, well, wasps, they annoy me when I'm sitting outside in the garden, but those are the very animals that the plants depend on for their survival. And again, if they are not pollinating the plants that we are eating, if they're not pollinating the apple trees, the pear trees, the berries, whatever, we won't have those to eat. So, and it's really because we have been using insecticides and herbicides to a massive degree, and that is almost suicidal now. We are in danger of destroying the nature and the food that we depend on.
Okay, am I right in saying that the Green Party in Ireland in particular, out of all the political parties, take the issue of biodiversity the most seriously, and that there has been some improvements in the environment since they went into government 2 years ago?
I will have to say that obviously the Green Party have done an enormous amount raising awareness, and you can see that since they got to into power with the current coalition, that there have been great new initiatives on a range of things like transport and carbon or climate change, etc. But actually, I think the overall picture is twofold. One is that the climate and the environment crisis is absolutely very, very serious and very, very urgent. But also that actually awareness has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. And it started with the schools, really, and organizations like Global Action Plan. We work in schools because children are much better than adults at understanding the interaction and the interdependence between humans and our natural world. So it's really what we are seeing in our work is that young people are driving the agenda. They are saying to us, people my generation, how did you let the situation get so bad, and what are you going to do to improve the environmental or to undo the damage that previous generations have done to the climate and to the natural environment. So I think and we're talking to companies as Global Action Plan. We work with a range of companies, and they have started to understand the extent of the problem, and they have accepted that we all, however small or however large, we all need to chip in and make sure that we avoid the disaster that climate change spells.
And you train people as well, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. So we really, I suppose we're an environmental organization, but we're also an education organization. So we feel that we need to change the way we live and the way we behave together. And the start of behavior change is starts with knowledge and education. So we're teaching, we're training people to try and understand the causes and the linkages between different issues and different challenges, and then we try and empower them, encourage them to come up with ideas themselves on how to address it, and then what each of us individually can do to help make this a better world.
Okay, and I read the article in the Northside People West about your organisation last week, and as you mentioned, National Biodiversity Week is starting this Saturday, the 14th. Could you tell me, I think you might have already answered this question, but could you tell me a bit more about this year's National Biodiversity Week, Hans, and what yourselves will be in Global Action Plan will be doing during it?
Yeah, so National Biodiversity Week happens every year, and it's an opportunity for us to work together and to raise awareness of what we were saying, this beautiful diversity of the natural world. We are using, we're based in Ballymun, so we're using the environment that we have here in the public parks in North Dublin. So we'll be on Saturday, tomorrow, we will be in Poppintree Park in Ballymun, and we'll be doing nature trails with the difference. So at 11 o'clock we have an event where we're just asking people to have a look at weeds and to learn more about weeds. And people tend to think about weeds as a nuisance. Well, we're celebrating actually that that there are many weeds that you can actually eat, and we explain how different weeds that you come across in your lawn or in the park actually have a really positive role to play. So that's at 11 o'clock on the Saturday. And at 2 o'clock we have the Bio Blitz. So that's, I suppose, our little contribution to citizen science is where we ask people to walk around the park and just note, register the different species of animal and plants that they encounter there. It's something that is actually fun, but it's also of value scientifically. If we know how many butterflies or how many wasps or how many particular birds there are in a place like Ballymun, it helps contribute our knowledge of the natural world. We also have a couple of online events. Those are sort of around biodiversity, so people can log on for free, join the workshop and learn more about biodiversity and what it means to you and me and what it means to us as a species. So details are on the website globalactionplan.ie. If you go to the news section the take action section of the website.
Hans, I knew you for 7 years when you were the CEO of DOCUS, and then you became the Michael D. Higgins' Director of Communications. So you've had some big changes over the last few years, haven't you? The last 10 years. Are you enjoying your new job?
Absolutely. I think yes, they are very different jobs, working in overseas aid, working for the President of Ireland, and now working for an environmental organisation. But to me, they are very clearly linked. Overseas aid agencies, they are working about global inequality and poverty. President Michael D. Higgins has been one of the strongest advocates that I know about global poverty, global inequality, and the climate crisis. And now in this role, working for Global Action Plan, I also have an opportunity to work on those issues, because we know that the way we treat the environment is linked intrinsically to the way we treat our fellow human beings as well. So what we're saying is that we have come to a situation where the planet is in danger, and that is directly linked and directly a result from the economic system that we have built over the last 20-30 years. This unbridled market focus, the focus on profit at all costs, this is what has created the problem that we are experiencing now. And so it damages the planet, but it also damages the poorest countries and poorest people in the world. So we cannot separate the climate and the environmental crisis from the global injustice, the hunger crisis, the poverty crisis. They are all linked, and they all have a similar solution.
And they all come under sustainable development, do they?
Yes, so we, when I was in DOCUS and when I was with President Higgins, we were working on the Sustainable Development Goals. This is this internationally agreed recipe, I suppose, for a better world. It was agreed by world leaders in 2015, and it inspires everything we do in Global Action Plan as well. So if people want to just learn more about the Sustainable Development Goals, again, they can contact us via globalactionplan.ie, and we can tell you more about it. We feel that the Sustainable Development Goals are really at the heart of the recipe that we need for the future.
Okay, Hans, it's great talking to you. To come towards the end of the interview, bearing in mind that some of our listeners today on Near FM or on podcasts will be kind of different age groups, could you tell them, tell them what's the best way to get in touch with you as from a point of view of kind of getting involved with you, you know what I mean?
Well, there's different ways. The old-fashioned telephone or the letter work. So we're based in Ballymun in the Access Centre. So you just drop us a letter to Global Action Plan, Access Centre, Ballymun, or go onto the website, globalactionplan.ie. Or we also have a presence on social media. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook, and even on TikTok. So those of you who are more interested in videos, check us out on TikTok. Our username is @GAP Ireland, GAP Ireland. So many ways in which we can you can be in touch with Global Action Plan.
You don't have to do a course, which is to get involved, which is, do you know, what's the story like?
No, absolutely. Like we try to work with people in groups. So if you're a member of a community group, or if you're part of a school or part of a business, it's easier for us to respond. But no, the activities that we have are open to people of all backgrounds and all abilities and all ages. So we've different ways, and if you're just curious, also just get in touch.
Okay, Hans, thanks very much.
Thank you, Darren, for the opportunity.